what's that process look like? For, I guess, I don't know if it differs, it probably does differ from a seed, because I mean, you're doing seed to B, which is a pretty big range, but what is that process? You look at something and how do you qualify it?
Yeah, great question. It is different, but sort of parallel, I guess. So at the later stages where we are sort of being the main, or looking to be sort of the main investor or one of the main investors, the process typically is, first meeting, make sure there's alignment, make sure it sort of makes sense on both sides. And then we get excited about doing work to understand the opportunity better. So if we meet the founders and decide there's, a good, we agree with the thesis, we think the business is exciting. Typically, we're looking for companies that already have quite a bit of traction at Series A and Series B. So not pre-product or pre-revenue or anything. So we look to see, all the charts go up and to the right. And once we sort of verify those initial things, we'll do some due diligence at that point, which is a combination of looking at financial models, looking at KPIs, and trends therein. We like to do customer calls, and again, part of our sort of advantage that we have as Bertelsmann is our network, both within the company but also around in the media world. So we'll make a handful of calls to people that we know who can say, yes, this technology is something we've seen and we use it and we love it, or we don't know it, but it sounds really interesting and we'd love to dig in. Both of those are sort of meaningful indicators for us. And once we start getting excited, we sort of get the whole team on board. Like I said, we're a small group, so perhaps differently than some larger funds, we get all the partners to 100% buy-in, and then put down a term sheet. So it's not anything too dissimilar than other sort of financial VCs. Again, speaking to our sort of financial VC makeup.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at the later stage, it might take a few months,
right?
Just because of all the work that gets done. Just to answer the question on the earlier end, so we do a very similar process, but because we are not sort of lead investor candidates, it's more important. The first step is more important. So more that we want to get alignment on the company vision and the thesis, that we believe in the team and think they're strong and both good operators, but also good managers and investor relations people. And we do our work. We want to understand sort of the underpinning dynamics of the business, but typically because it's earlier in the story as well, there's not as much, we're not going through the details of OpEx in the same way that we would for a Series B company. And also we're not the lead investor. So we are usually, it's not always this way, but usually there's a term sheet in place and a round going on and the company's looking to syndicate. So we sort of have a, yes or no, do you want in on this round or not kind of situation, versus let's talk about how we can sort of make this work for the two of us and talk about the right terms and stuff. So it's a bit of a different question you're answering, but sort of the process and the math you're doing mentally is similar.
Sure. So, I mean, you were talking about the team, looking at the team, looking at the traction. On the team side, like the qualities of a successful founder. I mean, what do you look at founders and like, what excites you about a certain founder? I mean, obviously we hear a lot about pattern recognition, someone who's maybe started something and actually, maybe sold it or built something special. But like for you, what is the qualities of a successful founder?
Yeah, that is a meaningful one. I'll say there's been a lot of good pushback, especially in recent times, about not relying on pattern recognition. So not relying on a network that's predominantly white and male, or relying on 4-time founders that are also predominantly white and male to make investments. Though I will say there's pattern recognition in sort of the impression that comes off of good founders, or sort of the preparedness or skill sets that come with founders. So some of the things that come to mind from your question are having sort of a differentiated take in the market that you're playing in, which usually comes with experience. So we love founders not necessarily that have been CEOs before, but have been heads of product in digital streaming solutions and now are thinking about sort of the next wave of streaming content or streaming technologies, right? Or, I was in marketing, but I noticed my marketing efforts in category X apply in an interesting way to Y, and I'm going to go here. So some sort of, why are you uniquely positioned there? And then the two adjectives I think that come forefront of my mind in terms of like initial impressions and what gives us confidence and excitement about founders are, one, having a really solid sense of your numbers, and not in a way that we're not asking every founder to be financially experienced people, or the number one guy on accounting or whatever. But we like the founders to be sharp on KPIs and know sort of what's going on underneath the hood. And it might sound obvious, but that's not always a given when we meet folks. And the second thing I would say is sort of a counterintuitive thing here, but like, humility, but also belief in what they're doing. So we don't like it when someone veers too much to one end or of the spectrum on either side. So we don't love people come in and say, we've got this idea and it's going to work and there's only one thing that's going to happen here. We love opening up conversations and riffing on ideas with founders and finding people who are sort of open to feedback, but also sharing their perspectives and having sort of firmly held beliefs as well. So somewhere in the middle of that spectrum of, I'm here to learn, but I'm also, I have a core set of beliefs that are going to sort of be the mast for my ship of the company.
And of course, you like the numbers aspect of it. I mean, you're a numbers guy, as a right, accounting guy, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it's that. So I'm probably just a little bit biased on it, but also I'll say just the pattern recognition of what companies that have done well, companies that are sort of viewing KPIs as the North Star in their progression, tend to just sort of find their path better. So like there's all this talk about product market fit and the hustle that it takes to get there, and there's a lot of sort of soft skills that go into that. But like particularly even in consumer businesses, not knowing the KPIs of your company is going to be impossible to figure out if you have product market fit, right? If retention is low, if engagement is low, but your top line user base is going up, is that a good sign of product market fit or not? That could be debated, but it can only be debated once you can see what the reality is.